All right, we are live. For anyone who may be new, this whole show started as like just something where we could talk about like our day-to-day lives in quarantine during the coronavirus pandemic.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, we thought it'd be a couple weeks. It's been 3 months now. We've continued doing the show. The show then morphed into like protest news coverage. Like that's all we were talking about. And then today,
A new change of events.
things happened today.
Things escalated today quite
quickly. Yeah, and so if you are here for your daily news or coronavirus news recap, don't just turn off this episode. I tried to find some things to talk about.
You don't want to check out the numbers?
I don't even care about the numbers. The numbers are the same. I went through CNN, I went through Fox and tried to look up stuff. It's like everything's the same. It just didn't seem like anything really worth talking about. Did you grab some video clips to talk about though?
I grabbed a couple video clips that were things that were trending early this morning because I was on the road most of the day.
Okay.
But I have a few clips, but I don't know if you want to start with those or if you want to get
No,
right.
I mean let's just explain what happened today because there's a lot of interesting things that went down today. And I'm sure the people who have been following this, the relatively small live show from the beginning, will find this very entertaining. So, 2 or 3 days ago, I don't know, maybe like a few weeks ago, someone reached out to me and said, hey, we're considering moving to your neighborhood. We saw, you made some YouTube videos there in Puerto Rico. We're going to come down to Scout soon. We'd love to meet up. And I was like, sure. And we talked on the phone. He's a nice guy. Well, the other day I was skateboarding around and he saw me. So I don't know if he was planning to reach out to me or not, or his schedule was busy or whatever, but he just saw me. And I invited him over to the house, and then he got a little tied up, like talking to other people around the neighborhood or whatever, and then we had to go live. So I told him, like, hey, tonight's not a good night for you to come over. Plus, the 2 girls in the house freaked out when I told them that, oh yeah, I invited 2 guys over here, like they want to see the house, and I was going to tell them about Palmas and stuff, and they were like, you're inviting strangers in our house with COVID, because like we've been living in this bubble of insanity for 3 months. So the next day, I was skateboarding, and I see the guys again. And they tell me that they're about to go to Dorado today. And they were like, oh, you want to go? Like, we're going to see our buddy. He's a character. He's probably watching right now. Hello, guys. Hello, Kevin. He's got a golden Lamborghini. He's got a golden Tesla. He's got a golden tank. And I have been trying to set up some homes to shoot in Dorado for when Mike Kelly comes here in a few weeks. And there's 2 other people that wanted to meet up in Dorado too. So I was like, perfect. I'll go, I'll see the golden Lambo, and I'll meet with these people and like, it's like, I'll knock out everything all in one trip.
It'll be more productive than going to the mall with all the stores that are
it'll be more productive than anything I've done in the last 3 months. So yesterday at the end of the show, I bring this up that I'm going to go to Dorado to check this out. And then surprisingly, you say, oh yeah, I'll go to Dorado. And I'm like, what? You're going to go to Dorado?
I'll go to Dorado, why not?
Because you're afraid of COVID-19 and you haven't left the house in 3 months, that's why.
I've been to Walmart, I've been to grocery stores.
With masks and face shields.
Yeah,
and,
I protect myself.
Yeah, you look like a damn fool. So anyway, we go to Dorado. And we go to this guy's Kevin's house. And first of all, he was like the nicest, most inviting guy ever. And there was the golden Lamborghini, and there was the golden Tesla. Sadly, the golden tank, like that, I don't even know what that is.
I'll have to look it up.
If you go to his Instagram, like you can.
It's like a bulletproof.
Yeah,
car.
he said it was
what kind
bulletproof.
of engine did he have in it?
It had a Hellcat engine in it, and he said it had a smoke screen button that would like shoot smoke at the attacking drivers behind him, and he also had like a spike strip button that would drop spikes.
Are they gold spikes?
I'm sure.
If you run over it, you like also make like $20,000. And it's like, well, At least I have the gold spikes in my car.
I don't know. But he was like, it's in the shop. The engine blew up or something.
He also had a fourth gold car there. It was like a Hummer X golf cart. And
Yes.
he said that thing could go 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous of that because our golf cart doesn't go past 15.
Yeah.
Like it takes longer to get places in a golf cart than it.
So let me just point out that as I suspected from the very beginning, the second Patrick had a hint of peer pressure, all safety protocol is thrown out the window. Patrick's shaking hands with these guys. These guys have just flown in from LA. These guys are hugging each other. Patrick's then in pictures with them and arms around each other. Like everything is thrown out the window. He's not wearing a mask. You're not wearing gloves. You're not washing your hands. You're doing nothing.
I did all of that.
You did not.
I
You
went to the bathroom.
did
I
not.
I washed my hands. I didn't wear the mask, but I felt like we were within 6 feet of each other.
Okay. Then we go to a restaurant. Patrick's like, I'm not eating in any restaurant. Guess what? We go to a restaurant. We eat inside the restaurant. We're sitting right next to each other for hours.
When we show up to the restaurant, they make us wash our hands with sanitizer.
Uh-huh.
They give us each masks that we have to wear in the restaurant, and then they check our temperature.
To walk into the restaurant.
And then when we get into the restaurant, we are the only people in the restaurant.
Yeah, but we're sitting at a table with like 7 guys all talking into each other's mouths.
Yeah, but to me, I've always made the statement that it's like a numbers thing. If the restaurant was packed, I would have, that's when the real test would have happened. But I would have felt like I don't really want to go
Here's what really matters. Kevin finished telling us that he, for during the pandemic, has been shipping groups of girls in from Miami to have parties at his house. The guys that we were just with have flown in from LA. They've each had contact with thousands of people. You know, if you look at like the spider web of all the contact that they've had with you, they're the most dangerous people in all of Puerto Rico.
They may be the most dangerous people, but that danger is still well below us getting on a plane and being around all of those people.
With a mask on and everything, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You gave up everything. You're a hypocrite. But on the way, like we're about to go to this restaurant, and I was like, "Oh, are we going to take like the Golden Fleet to get to the restaurant?" And he was like, "Sure," but of course there's only one Kevin. He's going to drive his Lambo. Thank God he didn't let me drive it. And
how close were you to saying like, "Hey, man, do you mind if I?"
I
was like, there is no way I could even begin. Like maybe if I was at the house for a weekend, maybe on the last day I could be like, "Hey, man, you mind if I?" We're cool now. Can I drive?
Yeah, like I don't know Kevin. Like obviously Kevin's the most generous person ever. He probably would have been like, sure, but I'm not gonna ask a stranger if I can drive his $300,000 car. But he was like, Lee, do you want to drive the Tesla? Have you driven one before? I'm like, yeah, I rented one for a week. Like I know how to drive the Tesla.
No, you know how to drive the Tesla.
Yeah. Sam Smith says, Team Lee, Patrick is full of crap on his excuses. Yes, thank you. It took a minuscule, a picogram of male peer pressure, and Patrick caved, as expected. But I drive the car. I'm very careful, obviously. Like, in anyone's car, I'm going to be careful. But when I'm driving, like, a luxury car with a gold wrap on it, like, now I'm extra careful, right? So I pull into the parking spot.
You shouldn't give it away because we have some videos.
Well, I put the picture in the thumbnail too.
Well, why don't we play the first? I don't know what videos you have, but I've filmed a lot. I found it amusing. While you guys were interacting, I was staying quarantined inside the car.
Okay.
So if you start with the one that doesn't have a number on it, this is. Oh
boy.
This is the situation that we're in. Well, we'll take this one instead. So everything seems to be going pretty well, right? We get in the car, we take off. We literally have to drive like 2-3 minutes away.
Yeah,
it's the shortest.
It's like 1 mile away. So there's no excuse for wrecking the car. But as I'm pulling into the parking spot, I remember thinking, like, I need to watch out, obviously, for the cars next to me and make sure everybody can, like, open their doors and not hit the cars next to us. But I also need to pay attention to the concrete bumper thing, you know, that's on the ground to stop the car, because I don't know how low this bumper is. So I remember pulling in super, super slow, and you know, it's a quiet car, so I'm just listening, like any sound I would have heard, I would have immediately stopped. But
meanwhile, Kevin just pulls the Lamborghini up to the side of like the packed out parking lot.
That's what I should have done. Well, like he doesn't even put in a parking spot. He's like away from everyone. If I
wasn't away from everyone. It was like the parking spots were all full, but there's a little bit of space where you drive, and he was like, "I'll just pull next to the last car."
Yeah, but like in theory, where he parked, no one could park next to him, right? And if I had just parked behind him, everything would have been fine. But anyway, I pull forward. I don't hit the wheels on that concrete thing. I like nothing scrapes. Everything's fine. We go eat. Patrick catches COVID from being in a restaurant with all these guys.
I mean, you do, like, again, we had masks on, but then you do have to take the mask off to eat and drink. You're not going to, like, take the mask off and bite and
The masks were off the entire 2-hour meal.
Yeah, because we were eating and...
Yeah, so you got the COVID.
I mean, that's what eating out looks like.
Yeah, I agree. But you said you'd never go to a restaurant and eat inside, and then you did the first chance you got. So, as we are leaving, Kevin gets in the Lambo, and there's this other guy who's in some other souped-up car who sees the golden Lamborghini.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's not a flashy car or anything, but somehow he noticed it. And this other guy starts revving his engine as like a let's race Kevin type thing. And these cars are the loudest cars I've ever heard in my life. I mean, they're both revving at each other, and I'm
so
like,
obnoxious.
This is insanity. Like, what's about to happen?
Everyone in this plaza hates all of us.
Yeah, they hate all of us.
Associated with it.
And then this other car, who I don't know who they are, they do like the most unsafe thing imaginable. They do this burnout takeoff in the middle of this parking lot to basically show Kevin that their car is also flashy or something. I don't know.
Their $20,000 car.
Yeah. But, I mean, they're literally like...
burning rubber.
Yeah, and going really fast. I was thinking, like, they're going to kill somebody. So we're watching this happen, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
I gotta be super
like,
safe
don't...
now.
Yeah, I got to be safe. And, like, what happened if that car went out of control and hit something, or hit the Lambo, or hit a person? Like,
I was thinking, what if Kevin decided just to pull out, and that car T-boned him?
Yeah.
Would have been the worst.
Yeah, so I was already like, okay, I got to be an adult here. I can't be acting like these people. So I get in the car and I start to pull back, and I hear this little like scratching noise, and I immediately stop, and I'm like, what is that sound? And I'm freaked out. Like, is that crazy car behind us or whatever? And people are like, no, nobody's near you. And like, I check everything. And I pull back just a little bit more, and we hear this like, clack, clack, clack. And we're like, oh God, what is that? And what has happened, and I don't know if there was already, one of the plastic snaps loose under the bumper.
Yeah.
But the bumper had gone over this concrete thing and then just had barely like on the other side. And then when I backed up, it pulled the bumper up.
It's almost like, I think when you get your oil change or something, isn't there like a plastic oil protecting thing that like holds everything up?
Yeah.
It was almost as if that on the Tesla, I don't know what the Tesla has.
Well, it was all one part of the bumper. And it's got snaps all the way around, all around the top and all around the bottom. But when I looked, it had like gripped this thing. So I am now mortified. Like, oh my God, I have ripped the bumper off of a golden car. And this guy I don't even know, who's been nice enough to trust me to drive this thing, like what is my luck? I've been driving this car for 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's like getting in a wreck as soon as you get the keys to a rental car, and you're like,
no, even that I wouldn't care about. It's like you got the insurance or whatever.
But it's the same sort of idea of like, how humiliating is it to do it with the attendant right there? And you're like, I just backed into the column.
Now Kevin did not see this, even though I assume Kevin is actually watching live right now. With all the guys, they're probably cracking up. But Kevin's friends...
He might not be cracking up in a minute.
Let me be clear. I have told Kevin, if there is more damage to the car, then we have known, like, you send me the bill, I'm going to pay for it. Like, this is my fault. And maybe my insurance would even cover it. I don't know. I think the worst damage that happened to the car, well, we'll get to it in a second.
So this is my reaction after the backup.
Let's just go full screen.
Look right there.
That's not good. What happened? What? What did you do?
No, destroyed this guy's golden car.
Oh no. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Oh shit, got it. Go ahead. There. No worries.
You see that?
popped right in
That's
the
where he
face.
just scratched the hood.
This isn't a good look for Tesla.
I mean, all cars are built like this, but
Sell some of that stock.
so we snapped it back on as best we could, and when we got back to Kevin's house, I was like, Kevin, I'm so sorry, you won't believe what just happened. And then I showed him, and I'm telling you, I barely put any pressure on him. The whole thing just came off again. And I was like, oh my God, like what if that had fallen off while we were driving?
Yeah.
Then it would have totally destroyed
You would
the
have like run over it.
I
And
know,
it's just like,
that's so horrible. And Kevin was so nice. He was like, "Oh no problem, man. It's not a big deal." And he calls some guy who's working on the car, and somehow this guy was in like walking distance and was
he's like, I'll
over
get
with
my
him.
car guy to come fix this. And it's like, oh, hey, you're here. And I was like, how did the guy...
What was going on? And the guy-
Normally, this is like going to take a month to fix. And the guy just walks there, and next thing you know, there's a tool kit out. And I'm thinking, I don't know that you're going to fix this with tools. It's probably like plastic snaps that have broken. And
Yeah, so like I think I got a pretty good look at it, and some of the little plastic snaps, and it's like these little plastic like screws with the, you know, you put them in and they kind of expand type thing. Like some of those were missing. But these guys put it back together and fixed it within just a few minutes. Like they fixed it, but if you saw in that last video when we were trying to get the bumper off of that concrete thing, we scratched the golden wrap on the hood.
Can you hit back? Where exactly are you talking about that? Because I don't even know what you're...
So right, and we'll just watch it here. I'll just keep cringing at myself while we watch it.
See. Oh my God.
So watch right. See that black piece that's up there right by his
Yeah.
elbow?
Oh, that's
that is what, because he's lifting it right now to get it up over the
Right.
concrete, and so it scratches the wrap right there. So
Go ahead. There.
yeah, see, and they look right at it and go, ah! Like, honestly, I almost feel like if that hadn't happened, there might be really no damage. Like maybe a few of the little plastic brackets or something broke, but for the most part, there would have been no external damage. But, you know, like he paid all this money to have this thing wrapped, and then to have that, it
It's
sucks.
also kind of his brand. The guy with the golden cars.
Right. You don't want to be the guy with the golden cars with the nick marks in the hood. So, I don't know. I just feel horrible about the whole thing. It could have been so much worse. It could have, I mean, I don't even want to think about what could have happened if that bumper had like come off while we were driving or something. But Kevin, I'm so sorry. I'm going to send you like a... Oh, and then the other thing, the guy, he bought us lunch and stuff right before I wrecked his car, and he wouldn't take any money. And then the guy who fixed the bumper, like, I'm like, here's $100. Thank you so much for making me not look so bad. He wouldn't take the money either. So I just feel like I'm like super douchey because I accepted handouts from everyone. and I wrecked this nice guy's car.
Yeah, we may not be invited back.
For real. Yeah. So.
To all those big Instagram influencer girl parties. We will not be able to go to those.
I was never invited to that to begin with, but now I'm certainly not invited. All right, let's get caught up on some of these super chats here. Photog Mike says, Patrick should be in the dresser behind you for 14 days like Kramer did with the Japanese friends on Seinfeld. That was a good episode. Very good episode. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to, really, you need to quarantine for 27 days now.
27 days? I mean, you were driving the dude's car, touching all, you didn't wipe down anything.
Well, I'm not worried about it. Plus, I already had...
It's not about who is worried about it.
I had coronavirus.
You.
I already had the virus back in January.
You tested negative. You didn't have the virus.
That's hearsay.
If I didn't go to Dorado, I would be getting everything right here, right now. So what difference does it make? And I wouldn't have gotten that amazing footage. You would have wrecked the car with no one documenting it. We wouldn't have even had a show tonight.
The other guys documented it. I actually put some of the other footage that they got in here, but their footage isn't as... You have like the 4K footage out of your phone. So I don't think it's really...
Here, I was worried I wasn't
look, here's another clip. Let's see what this is.
It looks serious. So what happened here? Is this your doing?
Some asshole wrecked his car.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know why they would...
At least you wrecked that one and not that one over there.
Thank God. Thank God.
The best, though, would have been to have wrecked this one over here. That seems like the least
Even that looks
expensive to repair. A lot of gold, though. Are the parts more expensive when they're gold?
What's that?
Are the parts more expensive when they're gold?
Nah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what my day was.
It was a
today.
rough day in paradise.
The truth is, before I destroyed this nice guy's car, I had such an amazing time. All of these guys have such interesting businesses.
Yeah.
We invited another YouTuber who's just killing it on YouTube. He's completely independent of like this group of guys. And at lunch, we just had the most interesting conversations, and it just kind of reminded me of like, this is what's so cool about Puerto Rico.
It was a really good day. Like, it was fun just to talk to other entrepreneurs and business people. A lot of these guys sell products on Amazon. Like, that's how they've made their money. And it's so inspiring to me to think that, like, somebody was joking that these are all like crypto kids and stuff. They're not. I mean, I'm sure they own crypto as well, but they've made all their money coming up with these unique products. Some of them, a lot of them are like supplements, and they sell all this stuff on Amazon, and they've become some of the biggest sellers on Amazon. And then, like you said, this other guy, he does like homeschooling or like...
It's basically family vlogging. So he now just makes one video per week. And it's funny. I'm like, listen, man, I don't mean to offend you, but I don't know who the hell would watch this type of content. He's like, no offense taken. I know exactly what you mean. But every one of his videos, he said he has like 1,500 videos, and all of them have well over 1 million views.
He said he has 1 billion views on his channel. 1 billion.
It's crazy.
That is
It's so
wild.
crazy. And it's just him like, hey kids, want to go to the beach today? Okay, want to do a science project? Want to play with Legos? And
it was interesting because we had a conversation about some of the new laws that have changed on YouTube about having commercials and ads with children or aimed at children. And, you know, our channel, we just always mark this is not children's content. But I remember this happening a couple months ago where YouTube and maybe the U.S. government was saying, like, we have to regulate how we're influencing children in advertising.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of some of the hurdles he was dealing with his business. And so it's just interesting to talk to people about how they make money and obviously why people move to Puerto Rico and what their wives thought and their family thought. And then the two guys that you met that invited us out here, I mean, they're about to just pick up and move down any month now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the story is very, very similar.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to meet people like-minded that are... And then the other guy, the Puerto Rican guy that was with us, he helps people sell businesses, but then he's also coming up with inventions and products, and it's just cool to be around a bunch of people from different walks of life, different parts of the country, who all have that eagerness to grow both from a business standpoint, but then also fitness and
You know what else is so great is everybody just has answers for everything. It's like if you go to these guys and you're like, hey, I've got this product, but I don't know how to market it. They're like, call this guy, you can hire him, he'll do it for you, or watch this and this class will teach you everything you need to know, or join this mastermind and you'll get where you need to be. Or, hey, I want to design a product, but I don't know how in the world I'd start. They're like, oh, here's where you got to go, and you got to get the molds made first, and then you're going to do the prototype with these guys over here. It's just like everyone has done it before, and if they haven't done it themselves, they have friends who have done it. And so these people just have an idea and they get stuff done. And it's really inspiring. It's cool just to be surrounded with people like that.
And then now, I mean, I don't know that I really thought too much about this, but we did the video on the F-Stoppers channel where we show how to create like a commercial, and we just did it for our neighborhood. And then you go to another part of the island in Dorado, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, we've seen that video. Dorado needs a video like that, but everybody knows that video. People are moving here now from the video, and it's just wild to think that like something we just kind of made in our free time is now the thing that people, it's like a calling card. Like people are like, oh, you guys are the ones who made that video? I know that video.
Yeah.
Come on in, you're welcome. And it's like, man, this is kind of
now
cool.
I'm just going to be like, you're the guy that wrecked the golden Tesla? And be like, I'm the guy. And they're like, cool.
Here's the keys to my car.
Yeah,
We got to get an
awesome,
Instagram
bro.
story, man.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's insured.
David Pinner says, that guy's in the cartel. I'm zoom into your nose and pupils. What? Either way, I'm coming to party with you guys. Andrew H says, y'all ate enough to push the car down. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what seems like happened. Like when I pulled in, it was fine. And then we weighted the car down more. And when we pulled out, it was just like 1 millimeter lower and enough to grip that piece of plastic.
Maybe, but I still feel like if you had said, hey, somebody else wanted to drive home, I drove here, what would have happened then?
Well, so that was the debate that we were all joking about, is if someone else had driven back, the same thing would have happened. The bumper would have been ripped off. And whose fault would it have been? I still kind of point to me and like, I'm the one who parked the car like that. But then maybe you could argue, well, you should have been able to hear the crunching sound of the plastic, popping out
But then
earlier.
Maybe you should say who ate the most at lunch. Maybe they were the ones that contributed the most.
Yeah,
who sat in the passenger and driver's seat?
That's
Maybe
so true.
if they were heavier, they pushed down on the front.
Absolutely.
Although the front of the Tesla is storage. All the batteries and everything are in the back.
I mean, they go along the whole bottom.
Okay, I would imagine our weight affects that car's weight very minimally, right? Like that car's got to be so heavy with all those batteries. That
But it's got like this airbag system, and maybe that, I don't know exactly how the airbag system works with Teslas, but I wonder if somehow they inflate as you're driving, and maybe while it's sitting parked, maybe it could lower just ever so slightly. I don't know.
Rick has a good point. Doesn't Tesla have sensors to detect all of these curbs and things? The sensors weren't working in this one.
And then, so I'm driving out after having just pulled the bumper off this thing, and the car is beeping. And I'm like, oh God, like I must have destroyed some sort of sensor or something. And the car is just, and then we learn that Patrick just never shut his door. And that's what the beeping was coming from. I'm like, damn it, Patrick, you're making this situation more stressful than it needs to be. Bruce says that Lee's fat ass from the Nutter Butters weighed the Tesla down. I mean, that's true.
Possible too.
I didn't have any Nutter Butters right then, so. And then Photog Mike says, Lee, give him some of your shorted Tesla stock.
Man, those guys were all about Tesla and the stock and being long-term holders. They were, people were saying it's going to go to 5,000 in a few years. And then you're like, sorry to bust everyone's bubble, but I'm the guy who shorts it, even though I like Tesla.
Yeah.
We do have a Tesla video or two. We will get back to the show, even if it's only for a few minutes. I don't have a lot to talk about except this incident.
Well, Sam Tagree says, we are all disappointed in Patrick's recklessness. Patrick, do not give in to Lee's patronizing. I think Sam Tagree might have been one of these people who for the last 3 months has been like, Team Patrick, Lee's being reckless and putting lives in danger. Why can't Lee just stay inside like Patrick does? And then you let this person down.
Well, this is a Patrick without a K, so I don't know who that is. It's a different Patrick.
It's you. Trust me.
I was reckless
It's
when
you.
you're the one literally wrecking cars.
Dude, the car can be repaired. You cannot be brought back from the dead.
I would love to have a test because I feel like we were safe today. I don't feel like it was that
This is my point. This is my point. When I say, hey, let's go to a restaurant, you're like, no, that's not safe in there, man. Like the air's blowing around. But then when you go to a restaurant, it feels safe when I do it.
I mean, we got texts here from our wives and fiancés, and it showed what was considered safe and not safe. I'll have to bring this up, but I remember restaurants being fairly low. Eating outside at a restaurant was a risk level 4. Camping was a risk level 3.
How is camping not a 0? What is that even? How are you going to get it camping? That doesn't make any sense.
Amusement parks is 8. Churches are 8. Public pools are 7. Restaurants, indoor seating, that's a 6. That's over the 5 mark.
What
But
have
I don't
you
know.
done?
This isn't a very scientific
Oh,
document here.
now it's not science
Well,
anymore.
I mean, we were the only, there was like 1 or 2 other tables with like 1 guy eating.
And what would have happened if it was packed? Would you have said, excuse me, gentlemen that I look up to, I don't think this is safe. I recommend that we do not eat lunch and instead we starve.
We were listening to this podcast there and back, and at one point, the guy was just making the point that, like, wearing a mask today is almost like wearing a Make America Great hat. It's like, regardless of what you think, if you are the mask wearer, you are now viewed in, like, a completely different light. It's like, if you don't wear masks, like a lot of people were, it's like you don't think the virus is a big deal. It's overblown. We're safe. We're over it. We're good to go out. But if you're wearing the mask, you're viewed as somebody who feels like the virus is very deadly and I am responsible and we shouldn't be opening up, you know? It's like you can't be a group of people where half are wearing masks and half aren't without this weird social divide based on the mask wearing itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah? What's your point?
I'm just saying it's strange. Like I wore, like when I got up to go to the bathroom and walk through the restaurant, I put the mask on. When I left, I washed my hands. Like I went in the bathroom, washed my hands every time. I feel like I still tried. I didn't grab everybody's phones and like.
What are you talking? You shook everyone's hands.
I don't remember shaking everyone's hands.
I think you did it twice, when we arrived and when we left. I have a photograph of you putting your arm around the men and us taking a photograph together.
We did take a photograph together.
We sat at a table for 2 hours and we talked right at each other and there was no social distancing.
I mean, but we were at like this distance.
No, we
here.
weren't.
Yes, we were.
No.
She even said you have a 7th person. They can't sit here because we can only have 6 people per table. So we had to expand the group a little bit more.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were all leaning straight at each other.
So when you see the footage from CNN of the restaurant in Wuhan where one person had it and everyone on that side of the restaurant gets infected because they believe the air was being blown through the AC.
Was it through a restaurant or was it cubicles where people were working?
Both.
It's like multiple days of exposure.
No,
It's like,
it was one restaurant, one evening for dinner. And a bunch of people all along one side under the air conditioning all got it.
I mean, I don't know. I still think there's levels of it, and this chart has levels. Like level 6 is
we
not
went to
great.
level 6 today.
Level 6 isn't great.
And then...
But
and
like,
then,
let's read the other one. Bars, I don't know, level 9. Buffets, sports stadiums, gyms, amusement parks. That's going to be the big challenge because I think Disney announced that they're opening up Disney World on like the 17th, the whole thing. July 17th. They announced something today. Churches, basketball, public pools. Those are all in the 9 to 7 category, and I feel like those are things I really don't want to do. I don't want to go to a gym yet.
Okay, but you did say you thought going to Disney World would be safe and you wanted to do that. So according to this, it's not safe.
It still feels like an amusement park would not be as bad as like a gym or a stadium or a buffet, a bar.
Okay.
I mean, if they're wiping down the handrails with sanitation every ride and they're making you stand 6 feet apart, it's not like Disney World is going to be packed like it normally is, where you can't move and you got to like move as a crowd. That seems dangerous to me. I would think the flight would be more dangerous than Disneyland.
Guess what? That's part of going to Disney World.
Not if you live in there. Anyway, let's just get on.
Photog Mike says gold leaf Nutter Butters for Lee on his birthday. I agree. My birthday's coming up July 1st, so that's in just a couple weeks.
I like Logan's comment here. It's not a super chat, but watch after all of this. Patrick will be immune to the Rona and Lee will die from it.
I mean, that doesn't prove anything.
No, but I could watch these diaries back decades from now and feel like I was trying to be safe.
Until the day you didn't want to be safe anymore because you wanted to hang out with the boys, and so you just did whatever the boys did. That's my point. When I go outside and no one outside cares and they're like, hey, Lee, want to come play poker? I want to be like, yeah. Hey, Lee, want to play tennis? Yeah.
Poker, you're still dealing the cards, and like over a few hands, you will have touched every card with people touching their face in the hands. I don't feel like we did any of that. Maybe there were some hands shaken, but like I went to the bathroom just because I had to use the restroom, and then I washed my hands, and I opened the door with the tissue, and then I'm back in their space, and I'm like propped up against an island in the kitchen, and I don't feel like I interacted that much with people. The restaurant, okay, maybe. Like I could see that, but is it any worse than being at Walmart? I mean, maybe.
Yes. It's way worse.
Just because I took off the protection
Yes,
to
and
eat.
you sat there and talked to men who had just flown across the country. They're the most dangerous men in the world right now. I do not care. I'm just trying to get you to be consistent. That's all. I appreciate that you came today. This is bringing me a lot of joy right now. I would be super depressed if I had wrecked the Tesla and I wasn't able to still mock you. Now, I wrecked the Tesla. That's upsetting. But then I get to call you on your hypocrisy, so it makes me feel better. Bruce says, Lee is having a bromance. I don't know with who, but sure. Anthony says, Patrick is full of shit. I agree.
Well, Robert over here says, why is Lee always giving Patrick such a hard time? Hashtag Team Patrick.
Why are you reading over here? I'm just trying to read the super chats over here, and it seems like you're cherry picking the comments that you want to read over here. I'm reading 100% of the super chats over here. So let's just focus on the super chats. We've never focused over there. We got this. Nick says, Patrick doesn't understand what's safe, and Lee openly mocks any attempt to be safe. Bring on Aliyah to set you goof straight. Yeah, Aliyah is going to be the safe one. Aliyah wants, well, first of all, Aliyah was like, at the beginning of all of this, he was like, I don't believe any of this is a big deal. Maybe now's the best time, like right before COVID, we should travel
like
right
February,
before COVID.
End of February, it's like, let's book the flights anyway.
Yeah, because think about it. All the locations are going to be empty. We'll have them to ourselves. That was Aliyah's position. Then Aliyah got nervous like we all did. But I think Aliyah is now at a point where he's tired of being stuck at home with a baby for 3 months. He's ready to travel.
Aliyah's like, let's fly with the whole family. Let's bring the baby
Right,
and Naomi.
right.
And I'm thinking like, I mean, should we all just like make this as less risky as possible and not fly with everybody? I don't know.
I just got a quick photograph here. Maybe we should show this really fast.
Why are all these people watching the show right now?
Yeah, let's just
because
show,
we're getting texts from people.
this. Now, what is this? What is this?
I'm on the look at this. I'm on the far edge, and
what is that?
I'm standing next to the Puerto Rican who has not traveled.
Whatever, dude. He was just talking about how he was just hanging out with somebody who had just come back from Japan.
Back in like March when this all started. Look at you. I mean, you're being a little safer. You're on the edge, but you can see the grip there. I mean, you got a good hand on the shoulder.
Whatever, dude. Your hand's probably on this guy's butt back here getting the Rona.
I don't know. We all put masks on immediately after that photo was taken.
No, we didn't. You are so full of it, man. Oh, I'm so glad you came to this. Let's read some of these super chats and then get on with the show. Lynn again says, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, Patrick, just admit you're over it. So if you can, others can too. Sam Murr says, Lee's flaw is saying, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. One exposure equals no more rules. That's not entirely true. Pat is saying you can still have fun, but limit exposure. That's not what Patrick is saying.
I'm sitting right here, and that is what I'm saying.
Here's what you're saying. When the two guys were gonna come over to the house, that was too dangerous. Oh my God!
I never said that. That's what the girls said. I didn't even know. Like, I just played devil's advocate because it was a funny story and to get a rise out of you. I had no idea anybody tried to come over to the house. I had no idea. I probably would have been like, yeah, have them come in the studio and hang out. Like, they're not gonna walk into my bedroom and stuff, but I'll have them down here. It was the girls.
Listen, if you had not come today, and then I had explained everything that had happened, and I was like, yeah, and then we shook hands, and they hugged each other, and we never wore masks, and then I took pictures where we were putting our arms around you, you'd be like, bro, why are you gonna act like that? Why couldn't you just been distanced a little bit? That's exactly what you would have said.
I will stick to my guns and say what you would have done with or without me. What happened today was no worse. I mean, it was less worse than you going and rolling at jiu-jitsu with 20 sweaty dudes. Like, that is way worse. That's
going
like
to jiu-jitsu.
Yes, I'm still a little more uneasy about jiu-jitsu than I am about going out and having lunch with a few people. Like that, I'm definitely increasing the risk. I acknowledge that. But I don't feel like I'm going to these level 9s where we're going to concerts and...
I agree. I am not saying we're going to level 9s, but today...
Sal, what are you doing? Why are you texting all these pictures?
You went to level 6 today. Willingly, you took it to level 6, and I hope you quarantine from your fiance for at least 14 days.
At least 14 days.
Goodness, we got a lot of super chats here. Mike says, Lee, you were going to make Patrick go take a bath in hand sanitizer. I agree. I mean, I guarantee you, Kristen's upstairs waiting for you, pissed right now. I hope she's watching. Did you tell her what you did today?
I haven't even seen her. Have you seen your wife?
No, I've been working.
Yeah, I mean, we came literally home, found a few clips, and went live.
Yeah. I mean, Kristen's going to be very upset with you. Very, very upset with you. Travelstone 3 says, my son says, if 2 layers of clothing can't stop a fart, how are masks going to stop a virus? You know, that's science right there. I agree. Logan says, the children don't like it when mom and dad fight. Robert says, super chat time, baby. Lee is always trying to catch Patrick out. I guess that means call Patrick out. Come on, man, give him a break. He's so careful and scientific. Hashtag Team Patrick. What? Patrick has given me crap for 3 months for just wanting to do basic things to go live my life.
You don't want to do basic things. You want to go to like a jiu-jitsu tournament.
I do not
and I'm like,
want to go to a jiu-jitsu tournament.
You're like, I want to go to a Ricky Martin concert.
No,
and I'm like, that's not basic things.
There's no Ricky Martin concerts going on. You're just completely making something.
I feel like
I've said that I want to go to Disney World when Disney opens up.
You go to Burger King, and I'm not like, don't go to Burger King.
I think you were like, don't go to Burger King at the beginning.
The very beginning.
And then you wanted to go get fast food, and then it was fine.
And then I saw that they all have the masks and the gloves, and you can sanitize your hands, and like there's reports coming out that you can't get it from surfaces, and all, you know, asymptomatic people now are not carried. It seems like I'm taking science as it comes, and I'm readjusting. That's what science is. Science is testing stuff and coming up with new answers, and then
Professor.
Readjusting on that.
Okay, well, you have readjusted to level 6.
I have.
Dead
Jiu-jitsu
zone.
is level 10.
I would agree with that. I would agree.
And I'm not willing to, I mean, I'm never willing to roll around with sweaty men, but I feel like at this very moment, like, you don't have to go down that road with normal life.
I mean, I think that's a fair argument. And the only jiu-jitsu I've done is with 2 buddies who are next door neighbors with me. That's all I've done. Lindsay says, Team Patrick, $14.99 super chat just for you, Patrick.
Hell yeah.
And she says, play the new news clips now. Hold on, we got a few more super chats to get through. And Nick says, full disclosure, I am willing to sacrifice all of you for photographing the world 5, but I doubt the infection onset phase will delay itself for 12 months. I appreciate you risking our lives so that you can get the next tutorial. Bruce says, Lee wants Patrick dead. No, I don't want Patrick dead. I don't want anybody dead, but I want to live life to the fullest. You've been dead for 3 months, and today you had a taste of living.
I did feel like I lived a little today.
There you go.
Today
You're
was
welcome.
an exciting day.
Drew says, Lee, Teslas have the ability to self-lower when parked. Car could have broke itself. Aha!
Stock up 6% after people watch this
Elon
chat.
needs to pay for this.
People are like, what? There's a gold Tesla? I'm buying. Stock rallies tomorrow.
Anthony says, best episode ever. Get him, Lee. Logan says, Ricky Martin is touring live this year, Lee. He's not touring right now. Patrick's making up lies to try to save himself from his own hypocrisy.
Man, we just need to yell at each other. And
That's what everybody wants to see anyway.
Should we get to the news? Well, there's a lot of Dorado clips here. What was 6? I mean, all of this.
I think this was just the clip of like when I first did it, but it's similar to what you.
That looks horrible right there.
I know it looks horrible.
Is that the shot you used for the featured image?
Yeah. All right, let's get back to what this show's supposed to be about.
I think the appropriate takeaway is really twofold. You have, and you guys sort of said this in the beginning, you have a message which is pretty bleak on the economy, and frankly, an SEP, which you just described the numbers of, which is quite bleak. At the end of 2022, we still have an unemployment rate, according to the Fed, of 5.5, which is well above their NIRU estimate. So this is a pretty unfriendly economic forecast. But then you have a Fed chair that's telling you, hey, I got you. I got your back. I'm going to do more if you need to. I'll do whatever it takes. And so I think the market's got to tussle with those two things. I came away from the press conference, though, feeling pretty good, even with the very downbeat forecast, which may or may not be correct. As Jay said, we should all feel pretty humble when
Go back
when
for a
thinking
second.
about.
Like back 10 seconds?
Yeah. What is this chart saying? Unemployment forecast 2020 June. They think we're at 9.3%. I mean, is that what we just had? I thought we were like 13%. And people were still saying there's all kinds of craziness there. And then the change is by 2021 we'll be down to 6.5, which is still a ridiculously high number. The long run, we'll be back to near historic lows.
Pretty good,
that makes
even
sense.
with the very downbeat forecast, which may or may not be correct. As Jay said, we should all feel pretty humble when thinking about making these forecasts, and also humble about the ability of the Fed to create inflation, which is something that they're very concerned about, and we're concerned about going into this. So I think that the overwhelming story is not the economic outlook, it's that the Fed is there with programs, with everything that it's put in this to make sure that if we do have a second wave or another bout of weakness for any reason, we're just going to get the stimulus coming back in. And the last thing he said, Sarah, which I thought was really when the market kind of took a little move back up, not huge, but it definitely seemed to react to it on the last question, was when someone tried to ask him about, do you care about stocks all being up since the lows,
Right.
since that March date? And he said, we don't really care. We're not here to sort of call a bubble or not a bubble. We're here to make sure there's maximum employment price stability. So really not sort
I
of
thought it
putting
was a little
lid on
defensive,
this.
actually.
I agree with you. I thought that was a pretty strong comment for the stock market. Like, don't kind of give us a whole bunch of flack for sort of doing our job, which is trying to get jobs back and get inflation back to target. And, we're not really going to get worried about some nebulous concept of financial stability as it relates to where the equity market is.
So market was down today. It was down a whopping 0.5% after Powell said that they would probably keep interest rates near zero for 2 whole years till 2022, I think was the takeaway.
I mean, that seems so crazy to me. I can't wait to hear what Peter Schiff has to say about that. But I would think that people would be excited, like, oh, cheap money at least for the next 2 years. But I don't know what to think.
I mean, in a world where much of Europe has negative interest rates, maybe being at zero isn't all that bad, People might still flock to the dollar and say, like, we're still going to buy U.S. backed entities and equities because it's better than our financial environment. But it just keeps feeling like, where are you going to go if things get worse? What's going to happen when the civil unrest comes back during the election? Like, we were talking on the way to Dorado, and I was just thinking, like, man, if the Democrats win this election and Biden becomes president, I would imagine the responsible thing for any president to do would be to raise taxes to pay for all of this craziness that we've been passing out to everybody. But that can't be good for the economy. But half of Americans are going to be upset if they're going to feel like COVID, regardless of what you think about this, they're going to think that COVID and the riots and everything was to cause Trump to lose the election. And 50% of Americans are going to think this was a big scam and that everybody came against Trump.
Hopefully not.
If Trump wins the election, 50% of Americans are going to feel way worse than they did 4 years ago when Trump won.
See, I don't know if I agree with that. Do you think people hate Trump more now? And as I'm saying this,
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
know the
yeah, I
answer to
think they
this.
do hate him more now than they did 4 years ago. But
People were shocked 4 years ago. People will riot in the streets.
I just
There
don't
will
know
be
if I
chaos
believe that. I don't
if
know that I
Trump
believe
wins
that.
this next election. There absolutely will be. I feel like it's a lose-lose situation. It's like you're going to have half of America. I tend to believe, and maybe everyone on social media is going to criticize me, I feel like if Trump loses, there won't be as much civil unrest in the streets compared to if Trump does win. I think if Trump wins, we're like these riots we see right now that are focused on police brutality, I feel like they're going to be nothing. And it may even be worse, not just because Trump wins, but also because by election time, people have less money, unemployment is still the same, the economy is definitely worse. If there's a second wave and the virus comes back, I just feel like this is a teaser for what could be possible in about 5 months. So, you know, interest rates being at all-time lows, come that with all that stuff happening, I don't know. I feel like it's not going to be good.
Photog Mike says, living La Vida Rona. Rich says, I think Patrick is trying to stay in the graces of his fiance. Deny, deny, deny. That's absolutely what's happening.
Maybe a little truth to that.
Ulysses says, if Patrick gets Rona, he will lose his profitabilities. That's so true.
But if I have profitabilities, don't I already know if I will get coronavirus or not?
Will you? Or you're saying it was safe today? Level 6 is now safe for you.
I'm saying that maybe what I am doing is perfectly in my interest.
You've reached the pinnacle.
And pulled back just enough.
Yeah.
I was like, the server over there has the virus. We can't sit there. We
Yeah.
sit here.
Yeah. David says, Leah's going to die how he dreamed, submitting some dude in his underwear with his face in his crotch. I'm going to die submitting some guy, or the guy is going to submit me and that's what's going to kill me? Or I'm just going to die while I'm submitting somebody of like joy of being with a sweaty man with his crotch in my face. I'm not exactly sure what David's getting at. But,
Regardless, that situation's pretty exciting for you.
I mean, if I'm winning the fight,
Yeah.
potentially. All right, let's get to this next. Oh, this is pretty crazy.
This was crazy. I mean, we hinted at this early, and I think this got brought up at lunch, and somebody was like, oh, yeah, we knew that weeks ago. And I was like, I played that clip weeks ago, and the bar owner said she didn't know.
Yeah.
But here's a new interview. Came out this morning.
And as mourners here in Houston honor the life of George Floyd in Minneapolis tonight, CBS News is learning new details about the former police officer charged in his death. A co-worker tells CBS News the two men worked together at a nightclub, and he says they had a history of not getting along. CBS's Jeff Begaze is in Minneapolis tonight with that new reporting. Jeff?
Nora, George Floyd died here, and that's why you still have this massive memorial filling this intersection behind me. And even in the rain, people are coming out to see it. And our reporting today shows that the victim in this case and the officer at the center of the investigation crossed paths in another location too, a nightclub. Tonight, CBS News is learning new information about George Floyd and Derek Chauvin from a man who worked security with both of them at this nightclub in Minneapolis. Co-worker David Pinney is breaking his silence, telling us that the two men had a history. What kind of history?
They bumped heads.
How?
It has a lot to do with Derek being extremely aggressive within the club with some of the patrons, which was an issue.
The Floyd family says it believes what happened on May 25th was in part personal. Is there any doubt in your mind that Derek Chauvin knew George Floyd?
No, he knew him.
How well?
We interfaced with officers.
How well did he know him?
I'd say pretty well.
Maya Santa Maria, the owner of the now Torch Club, described how Chauvin treated black patrons when she talked to us for the upcoming CBS News special, Justice for All. Do you think Derek had a problem with black people?
I think he was afraid and intimidated.
By black folks?
Yeah.
As the investigation continues, other cities across the country are considering police reforms. Today, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said that he would support sweeping reform measures in his state, including a ban on police chokeholds.
It's not just a moment to express outrage. It's a moment to do something about it and to make real reform and real change.
City officials here in Minneapolis are discussing the possibility of defunding or dismantling the police department here. But even those who are in support of this idea still don't know exactly what that means at this time.
So this story has like a couple implications, I think. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head, but on one hand, the narrative could be that this isn't necessarily, I don't want to say it's not a racial crime, but it definitely might not be as much of a police crime if the guys knew each other. And it's almost like my job, I mean, it does. You can't get away from the fact that he's a police officer. But it's kind of like maybe he's like, I'm going to give him a harder time because I personally know him and I hate this guy and I've had problems with him before. And the badge now kind of gives me this veil where I can inflict this pain on him, which maybe is a big argument. Maybe the big argument is that police officers, many cases, do know their citizens and they are inflicting this pain on people because they wear the badge. But it kind of gives away, in my mind, it kind of gives a way out to say like, this may not be like the biggest racial or at least the biggest police brutality thing if the guys truly knew each other pretty well, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, another way that you might be able to think about this is if they do know each other, it opens the door for this being premeditated to some degree. And we were just arguing like, there's no way that could be first-degree murder. He didn't go out and plan and say like, I'm going to kill this guy today.
Yeah.
I don't even know that you can do first-degree murder in that way in a few seconds or minutes, you know? Like, I don't know where the law is there. Like, can you say, I'm going to kill this guy and it's premeditated? But if they now know each other, maybe you can make the argument for this is worse than second-degree murder and this is first-degree murder now. Of course, like we said a few days ago, you got to be pretty confident, though, you're going to win that first-degree murder case. Because if you go for that and upgrade it to that because they knew each other, it just feels like, could this all fall apart and the judge or the jury says...
Wait, is that what...
That's not what's happening
Okay,
yet.
I didn't hear that.
could just see that happening where in a couple of weeks, if everyone starts coming forth, more club... the club owner didn't know, but more security people start to say, I have video of them interacting, and I know that they had beef here, and there was actually a if there was other stuff that comes out soon, I could see where they're going to say, we're going to upgrade this to first-degree murder because he said there's a phone call, you know, something comes out. But that also could make it a lot harder to prove. I assume the harder and harsher the charge, the more definitive that you have, because first-degree murder now, I mean, you could be put up for the death penalty, right? Depending on the state that they're in.
I guess. Yeah.
So it just feels like it muddies the waters on both sides a little bit more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Is this as much a racist police, you know, proof
Some people
of
are saying it's like
that?
a hate crime. Is it a hate crime if you just hate the guy personally?
Right.
And it's let's just throw this out a little bit wider. What if they like had a dispute with money? or something of that nature, now you're like, all right, it wasn't necessarily a guy killing somebody because of the color of his skin, but we now have another motive, and it's something else. I mean, we're not there yet, and I think that's an important reason why we need to have these investigations, because it's very easy to see how, without all of the information, you can come up with a conclusion that might not actually represent the full story.
Yeah. Photog Mike says, where are the murder hornets? When I went into the hospital, they were on their way, and now I'm out and no news on the murder hornets. Yeah, that was a big scare. Remember, like years ago, decades ago, there was like a African killer bee swarm that was on the way.
Mexico.
Yeah, that was going to kill us all.
Well, I do have another clip that's kind of a scare
Oh, yeah?
thing.
Do you want to read this super chat by Sam? I don't know what this says.
Sam, Pat, attorney, premeditation can happen in an instant, I think.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I didn't read that, but okay.
I mean, I would be curious to know how you prove that without, a shadow of a doubt, How do you say, like, obviously if he says something, maybe that's, and it's recorded, but how do you know what's going on in somebody's mind?
Yeah.
One interesting thing, I don't know if you really want to get into this, I do not know this to be true, but somebody today was just saying that one of the cops that was there, of the 4 that are now charged with second-degree murder, all of them?
No, I don't think
some of them are.
But they're like accomplice to murder or something.
But somebody was saying one of those cops, it was like his 3rd day of training, right. And maybe that guy did say something that you can see on video. Like,
I don't know if it was that guy. One of them said like, "Hey, should we turn him over?" or something twice, and the cop with the knee on the neck kept saying like, "No." But yeah, the one guy, it was his 3rd day and training. Like he had no right to tell this other cop what protocol was or anything like this. He was in training, so it's like such a tough situation for.
It's so complicated because you have these stories like the Louis C.K. thing, where everyone's so outraged that he would like masturbate in front of somebody of a lower status. Somebody on tour that's an up-and-coming comedian, and you never see anyone say, like a lot of people did not say, just get up and leave the room. They look at him as a person in authority, and he is the one who victimized this person that is not on the same level. But when you flip it over and now have a police squad, and you're like, it's kind of a similar situation. You have this person who is a senior police officer, and you have somebody who now, again, I haven't looked into this claim, but somebody who might have been on training and have only been on the job for a few days, and they're doing the same sort of thing like, hey, is this correct? Should we do this? And then when everything's released and said and done, you're like, all of you guys are getting charged for something very similar. It just kind of makes you feel like, well, goodness, what could that cop have done differently? Like, could he jump up and beat the guy off of him?
Right.
And you say, well, could the comedian have said, like, I'm going to do something different when I'm in the presence of, Louis C.K.? Maybe I'm totally out of line trying to put these two things together.
No, it's an interesting. I mean, they're totally different, but it's an interesting point.
It's just this idea that like there's a subordinate and then there's somebody who has power. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, we're going to charge them all because it feels like the right thing to do. Maybe it is the right thing to do, but it's just a slippery slope that gets very ugly. And maybe when it goes to court, they will say, hey, this guy was new on the case, and there's a case for reducing his sentence. But then how will the general public react to that? Will people say, you know what, that is reasonable, and he doesn't deserve to be charged with capital murder, maybe even manslaughter? Maybe they won't say that's reasonable. Maybe they will be outraged by that, but only time will tell.
Anthony says, shadow of a doubt is not a legal standard. The legal standard is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right, but in my mind, those seem kind of the same, right?
Sounds similar to me. All right, here we go.
It has been suggested that we should rename as many as 10 of our legendary military bases, such as Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Fort Hood in Texas, Fort Benning in Georgia, and the list goes on. These monumental and very powerful bases have become part of a great American heritage and a history of winning, victory, and freedom. The United States of America trained and deployed our heroes here and won 2 world wars. Therefore, My administration will not even consider the renaming of these magnificent and fabled military installations. Our history as the greatest nation in the world will not be tampered with. Respect our military. Fort Bragg is known for the heroes within it.
Do you know these bases, like who they're named after and why people
I
want to
know the
change?
bases, but I do not know like Fort. I would assume they're named after people that might have racial tension in the past.
Okay.
Like Fort Hood, Fort Benning, Fort Bragg. Like I need to look these people up, but if we, and she kind of gets into this, but if we go down this road of like,
Anytime someone's offended, you got to cave and
it
give them
makes
what
me
they
wonder,
want.
and she'll touch on this, but like the Washington Monument, we can't name that after our greatest leader ever, you know? Like, at what point do you... I mean, they're doing this in Charleston. They're talking about the Calhoun statue needs to come down. And I learned that they put it on this huge pedestal because people used to throw tomatoes and feces at it when it was on the ground level. But you're like, Calhoun, was he an advocate for slavery? Or he just owned slaves but wasn't like an advocate?
Or was he a slave trader? Like,
But then
I don't
he
know.
did
It
all
might
of
have
these
been bad.
other great things. You start to say, like, at what point does something negative, you know, demean their whole... It's like the Michael Jackson thing. If you truly believe that Michael Jackson molested boys, then, like, we should completely remove all of his work and not look at him at all. I mean, that's what we did with R. Kelly, you know? Is it the same sort of thing? Like, if somebody does a lot of amazing things in the world...
But
do you
that's
just erase
different.
them?
That's different because, when Michael Jackson was allegedly abusing boys, it was not socially acceptable at the time. I mean, I joke all the time that in 100 years from now, nobody's going to be killing animals and eating meat. We're going to be eating lab-grown meat, and we're going to be eating plant-based meat.
That's an interesting argument. So do we need to remove all statues of anyone who was like a farmer or
a hunter,
or even ate meat? Like,
yeah, it'd be like everyone used to be evil and they used to torture animals, and everyone in 2020 knew how horrific those farms were, and they did nothing on purpose. And they could have there was plenty of options for vegetarian and vegan food. They chose to torture those animals, and that is despicable. I mean, I can totally see that happening.
I mean, the reality is all humans are awful people if you dig deep enough. You know, we all do really bad things. It's like in the nature of who we are. You could look at the best people, and I'm sure if you went down the list, you could find some clip of them saying something bad or something them doing, even in a time when maybe it was socially acceptable. Now it's not socially acceptable. It's another slippery slope that I'm like, are we really going to start renaming our streets and our towns and our organizations, our our bases? I don't know. Like, we're pulling down Confederate statues, and I kind of feel like maybe today is the day to do that. I don't think we should destroy the statues. Maybe we should put them in a museum where they might belong. Maybe it is weird to have these statues of Robert E. Lee, outside our courthouses. That is weird, I agree. But when you start saying, like, we should change the name of a base that none of us know who that is. It's just a name. Like, Hood could mean anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Trained there, that deployed from there, and it's an insult to say to the men and women who left there the last thing they saw on American soil before going overseas, and in some cases losing their lives, to tell them that what they left was inherently a racist institution because of a name. That's unacceptable to the president, and rightfully so. And I would also note, where do you draw the line here? I'm told that no longer can you find on HBO Gone with the Wind because somehow that is now offensive. Where do you draw the line? Should George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison be erased from history? What about FDR and because of internment camps? Should he be erased from history, or Lyndon Johnson, who has a history of documented racist statements? And finally, what about people that are alleged by the media to be segregationists? NBC tells us Joe Biden didn't just compromise with segregationists, he fought for their causes in schools, experts say. CNN tells us letters from Joe Biden reveal how he sought support of segregationists in the fight against busing. And Washington Post tells us that Biden's tough talk on 1970 schools' desegregation plans could get him new scrutiny. And there are several more where that came from.
That was a little low blow, I feel.
It was, but I think, so I'm looking up that Benning is named after General Henry Benning. I guess a lot of these military bases are named after Confederate generals. So I don't know. I don't know where you draw this line. It just feels like.
And the second you start giving these, pretend outraged people just a little bit, they're just going to keep taking more and more and more.
Did I say this on yesterday's podcast or maybe 2 days ago? I said, at what point do you say yes? Jefferson, Washington, Madison, all these people, yes, they are awful racist. And you know what they did? They designed the Declaration of Independence. They came up with
The Constitution.
And you're like, it's flawed now. It's like Michael Jackson's, all his discography is we need to mute him because he's an awful person. Can you not make the same argument there that like all of our forefounders had these negative things that they did do at the time? You would argue maybe it was socially acceptable where pedophilia and molestation wasn't. But like at what point can you separate the artist from the art? When can you separate the person from the amazing, documents that they created? I don't know, but I see this conversation coming very soon.
Jay Miller says, after tonight's heated episode, I feel like tomorrow's will be the assassination of Lee Morris by coward Patrick Hall. What? Team Lee, dump Trump. Don't know what that means.
I'm building a plot already.
You're going to murder me tomorrow?
No, I just have a montage of footage I've collected over the last month of you just being irresponsible.
Oh, really?
No, I don't know what he's talking about.
Photog Mike says, Clayton Bigsby for 2020. That's one of the greatest sketches of all time. Oh boy, this is going to make me feel great.
That it's time to bring the Tesla semi-commercial truck to, quote, volume production. So, Rick, I know you're closely watching this story for us. And Tesla's now the second, or it is actually the most valuable, it's now ahead of Toyota, the most valuable automaker in the world. I guess it's hard to believe that there's going to be nothing that stops this momentum that we've seen in Tesla shares recently.
Look, Tesla's a bubble. It's a legitimate car maker. The accomplishments at the company are impressive. It's very hard to start a car company and even get one car sold, and they've done much better than that. But come on, it's now valued about $8 billion more than Toyota. Toyota had a $17 billion profit in its last fiscal year, and Tesla still has not made money has not made a profit in a given year. So the market basically is valuing Tesla where it is because it thinks Tesla is going to dominate some industry in the future. I guess it thinks that's going to be electric cars, as if all the other automakers are just going to go away. Maybe it's going to be self-driving cars or self-driving taxi fleets or something. It's just not going to happen. But nonetheless, Tesla's on a great.
What?
Tesla tops Toyota as world's most valuable car maker?
Yeah,
what is that based on? Is that based on a stock price?
Stock price, like their market cap is now beyond, like, I don't know how many $1 billion it's worth. Like over $100 billion or something. But it makes absolutely no sense. I love Tesla. I believe Tesla could, take over the car market in years from now. But come on, like right now, this is crazy.
Right, and what has been happening the last week or so is this new startup called Nikola, named after the same person.
Nikola's a scam, but we can continue.
And Tesla is named after, Nikola Tesla, has gotten some attention for its plans to build first an electric semi-truck, an 18-wheeler, and then a fuel cell 18-wheeler powered by hydrogen. So Elon Musk is not happy that this company is getting a little bit of his limelight. So he sent an internal memo. Let's really clamp down on our own semi-truck, get that pumped out. And that's why the stock is up today. But look, this company's been on an incredible ride for the entire year. And it's almost valued as if investors think it's going to be the only car company standing in 10 years.
Which is insane, right?
It certainly seems insane. I mean, the one thing, not the one thing, but one main thing that Tesla has going for them is they're the only one that's building these gigafactories. So there is a battery problem. All these companies are going to want to make electric vehicles, but if Tesla owns all the battery factories, then even if Tesla cars don't sell well, it doesn't matter. They're selling the batteries for whatever price they want. They could still be winning.
We kind of had this conversation today about the supply chains and how people are worried. We're now through COVID realizing I mean, did we hear today that like 90 or was it 95% of all pharmaceutical drugs, including over-the-counter drugs, come from China? And it's like they literally could kill a large percentage of our population if they just said, we're not going to export all of these life-saving drugs that you're
like if we went to war with China,
and
they would
like,
just stop.
We're not giving you any more drugs. Like instantly, people 60 and over that are on drugs that keep them healthy could die within a year or so, or instantly, you know. But I think a lot of car companies are probably looking at supply chains too, right? You think all these car companies aren't saying, where are our battery raw materials coming from? Where is our final battery being produced? Tesla, I mean, are they building a lot of batteries in China or no? Do they have a gigafactory?
I think they're working on a gigafactory there. I mean, they definitely have their car manufacturing up and going in China. I'm not sure about the gigafactory in China, but I'm pretty sure.
It'll be interesting to see how Tesla plays that angle, because it feels like Tesla is an American company, but it also feels like that they have kind of been advocating for China in ways that other companies might be pulling out of China and saying, we got to get our supply chain out of there. But I just can't imagine that other car manufacturers are going to go bankrupt and not exist. Yes, Tesla might benefit from them needing their battery technology, but I've always felt like Tesla's going to be the first to do it, and then everyone else is going to just copy what they did with less R&D expenses to do it. But I don't see Ford and Toyota and Chrysler, I don't see these companies going away.
I don't either.
I mean, we just saw what happened to a golden Tesla. I mean, the bumper fell off. Like, people aren't going to stand for that.
Exhibit A, my short position is intelligent.
Tesla's market cap is 190 billion. What do you think Toyota's is?
I would imagine it's pretty close, like 180 billion or something.
182, yeah.
The town of Sudbury taking new steps to stop the spread of Triple E. It comes days after a young girl from the town tested positive for the rare but very dangerous virus. 7's Carrie Corrado is live at the Department of Health on what's being done to protect people. Carrie?
Amaka, good morning. The threat of Triple E has been risen to critical in Sudbury, so a lot of people are on alert.
Sudbury?
It's
that's where my brother-in-law lives.
Oh, you know, it's a suburb of Boston.
Yeah.
Better call him after this episode.
Dude,
Make sure he doesn't get that Triple E.
They're getting the Triple E?
Yeah.
I've never even heard of Triple E. What is this?
You know, there's Triple A, and then it got to Triple E, and
sounds
well, you're
bad.
about to learn. You're about to learn.
There, but crews are going to try to spray the area so this disease doesn't spread.
Mosquito spraying expected in Sudbury to tackle Triple E. Crews will use truck-mounted and backpack sprayers to target school grounds, parks, and fields. Town officials are taking this extra precaution after a 5-year-old girl tested positive for the virus and is currently in critical condition.
Terrifying and very scary.
The young girl is the latest person in the Commonwealth to contract the mosquito-borne illness. There have been 7 confirmed cases in Massachusetts this year. A 59-year-old woman died last month.
Up to 50% of cases we do see fatalities. What I really prefer people to focus on is not the symptoms, but the prevention in the first place.
Triple E is rare, but it can be deadly or lead to long-term brain infections. The 36 communities in red are at critical risk for the virus. Those in orange are at high risk, and the ones in yellow, moderate risk. Using bug spray, wearing long sleeves and pants, and staying inside from dusk to dawn can reduce your risk.
It's scary. It's a very serious illness, and what we want people to know is they have some control.
Senators Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren are pressuring federal health officials about research efforts to stop the spread of Triple E.
And state health officials say they expect to see more cases by the end of the season. Live in Boston this morning, Carrie Corrado, 7 News Today, New England.
Have you heard of this before? I've never heard of this.
No, I saw this on trending today, and I was like, wait, another virus that is now through mosquitoes?
Man, can't we figure out a way to eradicate mosquitoes yet? I've seen all these things that say if you were to eradicate mosquitoes, it would not have an adverse effect on the animal population or whatever.
Yeah, they're not a crucial part of any kind of animal.
And I think it's the most dangerous animal in the world, right? Mosquitoes kill more humans than any animal in the world.
Technically an animal, insect and animal.
Whatever. I think it has like I've seen a hierarchy of like, you know, lions,
The
dogs.
mosquito is responsible for more deaths than any war or all wars combined. It's like the mosquito is the most dangerous thing to humans. So yeah, I mean, wasn't there a video like 10 years ago that said like we can mutate the genes in a mosquito to make it sterile, and then after a certain amount of time, once it's introduced into the populations, like all mosquitoes will die and be gone?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm down for that. I mean, I guess the fear is kind of like the vaccine. If something isn't calculated perfectly right, and we find out that the mosquito is the only insect that is part of a necessary ecosystem, then you know it could be the end of all of the world, and we were the ones that manipulated the genes of this thing. And
that would be unfortunate.
We were trying to play God, but did you catch that there is a solution for that triple E?
No, what?
Just stay inside from dusk till dawn. Just stay inside the only days of light and you're good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the safest thing you could possibly do is never go outside again. No murder hornets, no triple E, no COVID.
Do you think, I don't think we've really talked about this, but with something like coronavirus being so fearful, like the media building this up, we still don't know how dangerous coronavirus actually is in numbers and in contagion and all these things, but the media seems at this very moment, we feel like the media has made this worse than what it actually is. And there's a lot of backlash now. There's a lot of people that said this was fake and a hoax, but even now I think there's a lot of people like us who are like, I don't know how bad it is. We kind of feel like it was played up a little bit more than it probably was. Do you feel that now that we've gone through a pandemic, that other things like triple E now are going to be completely laughed at and be like, oh my gosh, we are definitely not taking that seriously?
I don't know. I mean, I still know a lot of people, like you've come out of your shell today, but a lot of people that are still terrified of this. And so I think when they hear about the next thing, they're just wound up and ready to be terrified of that. And like, oh, I got to stay inside for another 6 months. Okay, let's do it.
Well, my dad was kind of like that. Like every year for a decade or two, they probably have lists like this online. It's like 2004, it's going to be SARS. 2005, it's going to be Ebola. You know, it's like you just come down the list, and every year there is some biological thing that is going to kill us all. And I'm always like, Dad, it's not going to be a big thing. We got over that. But he's always worried. But then you finally hit coronavirus, COVID-19, and it does take over the world to some degree.
Yeah.
You know, it's still not like smallpox or anything, but the fear is that this affected our lives in a very big way.
I know.
But I just wonder, how do you know?
Like,
Like, how do you know what the next one is? Are we going to take it more or less seriously because of this?
I know. I just wish the scientists were a little bit better about doing more tests earlier and having more correct statistics earlier, because I mean, everything that was said at the beginning, they ended up kind of going back on and changing stuff with the masks, and it's the asymptomatic people that are the most contagious, and oh, now they're the least contagious. It's living on the surfaces, and that's the most dangerous too. That's really not even dangerous at all. You don't have to worry about that.
I think I'll just reiterate something I said at the beginning of the show, is like that is what science is, though. If you do tests in the lab and you find that it lives on surfaces and can be picked up, you report that because that's what your findings are. And then as time goes on, you have more data and you have more experiments and more scientists around the world looking at it. And then you find that, yes, that happened in the lab, but it doesn't happen in the real world. And we thought masks don't affect populations, but then as we have more epidemiology and we see it with a larger group and we can study places around the world, science changes. I mean, I don't think like physics is going to change if we have that many years and we've studied it that long, but when you have new things to study, good science can't be done overnight. You can't just do this and say...
I understand that. It seems wild to me that we can have these viruses in the lab for years, and we're morphing viruses and creating vaccines and sending people to the moon and all this crazy stuff, yet when one of the viruses comes out, all of a sudden we're unsure about how viruses work now. Like, hopefully we've learned a lot through this, and when the next pandemic happens, we're going to know, like, yeah, it can survive on surfaces, but it's not really spreadable.
I think our world just changes too much. I mean, we had some pandemics, I think, in like the 60s or something, but the big one is the 1918 flu. And when you look back at that flu, we weren't flying continent to continent. We didn't have all these influencers throwing all these parties with all of these women from different parts of the country, you know? I feel like now it's just a different world that we live in, you know, with travel and the way people consume media, the way people question the media. So I think every year it's different. I mean, the next pandemic we have in 20 or 30 years, maybe we're not even driving cars anymore. And you have to say, well, the things we thought were true today maybe won't be true in 20 years because some fundamental thing changes in a drastic way.
Jonathan, going back to the pulling down statues and changing names, says your white privilege, oh no, yeah, the first Jonathan. You draw the line when you celebrate people that added to the oppression of black people, using the excuse someone did good by helping create the system in place now that contribute to this oppression is part of the problem. But I think you could just make the argument that anyone who owned a slave or bought a product or a piece of food that was created by a potential slave, you could just keep going down this list, and you could make the argument that anyone who lived in that time was just a horrific, evil person. And then you couldn't even go back and look at history or put anyone on the dollar bill or whatever because they're all horrific people. I think that's the problem. But he said,
what do you think, celebrate people? Does that mean just even having the name is a celebration? I mean, I would say 99.9% of Americans have no idea who Hood is, you know?
Yeah,
who
but
Benning is. I had to look it up.
By keeping that name alive, I mean, that is a sort of celebration, you know, if you donate a bunch of money to a school, they'll name a building after you or whatever to keep your name going on. And so, like...
What do you say about little towns that were, you know, built? Like, my town in Alabama was probably built by slaves picking cotton. That's what it was, and it wouldn't have existed except for that purpose.
Yeah.
And then cotton was eventually replaced with peanuts. But that whole town only exists because of slavery. Are you like, you should pull down the whole town and like rebuild? Because if you have pro-Enterprise Alabama statues, that in and of itself, it's not name, Enterprise isn't like a bad name, but it represents the celebration of a town that is in the South. You know what I mean? Like...
Well, I mean, there were arguments in Charleston about any tree that could have been used for a lynching needs to be destroyed today. So even if it's a beautiful historic oak tree that nobody holds up as like a symbol of slavery or anything, it's just a beautiful tree.
But people were hung on it.
Yeah, so like you have to destroy all of these oak trees.
Well, the argument was also like, well, did the tree have any say in this? You're going to kill a living tree that had no say in whether or not it was used for negativity. It's just, I don't know. It's like you start getting into these weeds on this argument. It's like, I don't know, should we be cutting down trees? Seems strange.
Jonathan continues. He says, your white privilege have benefited from these systems from the day you were born. Step outside the box and actually see how it affects other people. Don't ignore the history and the facts. I mean, I think I agree with that to an extent, but at the same time, I think we're both talking about history, and I mean, maybe Jonathan has no problem with having history and, you know, going into a museum or reading about it in a book, but he doesn't want statues and street names. Not sure. David says, look at the 13th Amendment, then look at the Democrats' history of harsh punishments for minor crimes. Biden still defended mass incarceration last year. I honestly don't know enough about, like, I've heard this, I've read this, you know, and seen this on Fox News and stuff. I don't know enough to really speak on that. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about, Patrick?
We went through all the clips.
I think so. Oh, Anderson Cooper cries.
I don't even know. You can play it. This is a big thing this morning. I don't know this was all that exciting, but might as well play it. I took the time to film it.
Yeah. I've had that. I got to say, you're I never had the honor of taking one of your classes, but I feel like I'm a student of yours, and I learn lessons every time you speak. And I just think it's...
No, we're in it together, brother. And the beautiful thing about tears, Socrates never cries, but Jeremiah does, and so does Jesus. We cry because we care. We're concerned. It's not about political correctness. It's not about self-righteousness. We cry because we are not numb on the inside. We don't have a chilliness of soul and a coldness of mind and heart. We cry because we connect, but then we must have a vision that includes all of us. And we must have an analysis of power that's honest in terms of the greed, especially at the top, in terms of the hatred running amok, in terms of the corruption, not just White House, Congress, too many churches, too many mosques, too many synagogues, too many universities, too many civic associations, and then the greed in us. You and I talk about this all the time, right? The gangster in us, because we're wrestling with this day by day, and that's why we need each other, my brother.
I feel like Anderson Cooper's a pretty good guy. You know, I've seen him get emotional before. And I feel like he's usually relatively fair. He obviously really hates Trump, and he's been getting a little more opinionated about that recently, but I feel like for the most part he's a good guy. I don't know if you've gotten to the part yet in the book, White Fragility, where she says white people should not cry about racial issues in front of black people.
So what he did was wrong?
According to her, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why can white people not cry?
Because there's so many reasons why, but you know, it's like we can't truly understand the pain. They have to deal with the pain all the time, and then when we hear about it, then they have to watch us cry. People watching white people cry takes the spotlight off of the real problem, and now it becomes about Anderson Cooper crying rather than about the racial injustice in America and everything. So,
to play devil's advocate, would laughing be the best thing white people could do because it magnifies racism and points the finger back at them?
She probably doesn't want that.
She doesn't want that either. There's like no answer. You can't do anything.
She probably doesn't want that either.
Somebody says that Anderson Cooper is literally a Vanderbilt. Like, he's from one of the most prestigious, privileged white families in America.
I remember watching a clip of Anderson Cooper on, who's the shock jock guy, the big radio guy, Howard Stern. And Howard Stern asked him some question like, are you rich? It's the most simple question ever. Like, obviously he's rich. I don't know. What do you think his net worth is? I would just assume his net worth is over $100 million. Like, maybe it's over $200 million. I would just guess.
Probably. I mean, he's the face of CNN.
Okay, like, he cannot answer and will not answer the question. Like, what do you mean rich? Like, you know, I'm doing okay, but, you know, I still have my own issues and everything. And I'm just like, come on. It's just, he's so afraid of being taken down by his own side, you know, the ultra left, that the rich are evil and they are stealing from the poor and everything. He can't even admit that he's successful. So let's see, Anderson Cooper net
I mean, I would
worth.
go as far as saying anyone that you see on television has $1 million, right? At least.
I would assume.
I mean, didn't you see how much?
So he says, before his inheritance, and I think he got a big inheritance recently, he had over $100 million before the inheritance.
Yeah, his mom died in the last year or two.
So, you know, maybe he's worth.
He makes
$200
$12 million a year and is worth about.
Okay, this says a net worth of $200 million, so I was totally right.
But you know, I could see where. I mean, I can't see, but if you had $200 million and you hang out with billionaires, maybe you don't see yourself as being rich. You know, there's always these games you can play. You could say, I'm in the top 10. I've become the 1%er. And you could be the 1%er and say, but the 1%ers are making, I think it might be like $400,000 a year. And you could say 1% is nothing compared to the, didn't Bernie Sanders start saying like the 0.1%ers?
Yeah.
They're the billionaire class. Like, you can keep drawing it out to try to say you're not part of some class system that you don't want to be associated with.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's very. I think the 1%ers still aren't. I mean, we heard a statistic today that was like the 0.1%ers own 90% of all of the wealth in the world. If you include the 1%er in there, maybe it's like 100% of the wealth is owned by the one. Like maybe all Americans are 1%ers in the view of the world, you know?
Yeah.
You can play all these games of like trying to figure out where stuff fits, but Anderson Cooper is definitely one of the most successful people in the world.
Sam says, difference is that Confederates tried to overthrow the U.S., treason, founders built it. Also consider a black person having to pass the statue/tree every day. Yeah, I agree, but I just think you could keep going and going and going and going. And, you know, like what if a vegetarian had to pass farm every day? You know, like did we get to abolish the farms?
The difference is the Confederates tried to overthrow the U.S. government as treason. It sounds like he's making a case for cutting the trees down. I mean, should we scorch all of the South because everything in Southern Confederate states helped their army and people? We should burn every field.
You know, yeah, we
should destroy every road. Like everything, every natural thing in the South is evil.
But there's lots of fields and stuff that they fought the Civil War in. So like if there are homes on, like we got to mow that field down now because there was like evil going on that. I don't know. I just feel like this is a slippery slope. Potok Mike says, Cornel West is one of the best, well-spoken and studied people we should listen. We should be listening to. We should be listening to. Henry McCann says, a lot of these Confederate monuments were erected in town squares and outside of courthouses to remind the freed people and their ancestors that they aren't welcome there. Maybe that's true. I'm not sure.
I mean, if that's true, and it seems like that's true, then yeah, I mean, like it's an intimidation factor, and I agree, you should take it down.
But you could make the argument, though, that, like you said, with George Washington, like, does the Washington Monument have to come down? Does George Washington have to be pulled from our money? You know, you could just keep going and going and going and going, and that's my biggest fear.
The tree one, though, it's kind of like the argument, like, does a tree make a sound when it's cut, when it falls in the woods if no one's there to hear it? Like, if no one knows the history of that tree, is it offensive? Because the tree was used for some purpose, but nobody knows unless you dig deep into the history books.
Right.
Like
it's like you're drumming up things to get people worked up about so that we can destroy more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. And like now we're going to start doing research into the name of every federal building and every base. And if there's any potential history of anything negative, then like it's got to be closed down, got to be changed the name, got to do it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's like horrific injustices going on all the time that I would love our energy to be focused on those.
Concentration camps. Should we remove the names off of those camps? I don't know the history of the names, but
I think the argument there would be they're not like naming the street Auschwitz and there's not like an Adolf Hitler statue. You know, it's different. They are keeping those open as almost like museums to show how horrific of a mistake they made.
Could Nazi soldiers not have used the names of the camps to antagonize people and to boast we've sent people to these? Couldn't the names have become these like pillars of like we are killing all of these people? And then now we've kept those names that are derogatory.
I don't think this is a good argument.
No,
no, because they're like I said, they're in a way. They are highlighting their own horrific atrocities to kind of show, like, here's how bad we messed up. We can't do this again. We're going to leave this open so you guys can see the mistakes that we made. That's very different than creating a statue to Adolf Hitler or something.
I could just see where that argument is. You're pushing it a little bit. Like they're saying, look at the atrocities that we did. I mean, a lot of Germans, we've been to Germany many times, and a lot of times people don't want to talk about that at all. They kind of want to erase it out of their mind.
I mean, I can certainly see why. Anything else you want to talk about tonight, Patrick? This took the weirdest turn. We went from...
Should we watch that clip one more time of one clip of the Lambo?
Oh,
or the not
whoops!
the
I
Tesla?
just started the outro by accident.
Oh no! I wanted to see your expression.
Oh man, I'm really
Guess we'll have to look
sorry.
at the thumbnail.
Yeah, sorry guys. See you tomorrow.